So, I've been traveling the world since 2018, and when I got started, I was pretty broke. And so along the way, I quickly learned a lot of useful travel hacks and strategies you can use to really slash your travel budget. And that's why in today's video, I'm sharing over 20 travel hacks to save money that actually work. And this video isn't going to cover a lot of the basics you probably already know, like don't buy food at the airport or use a travel rewards credit card. Instead, it's going to cover some clever, strange, and even unhinged ideas to save real money while you're traveling. This includes slashing prices for flights, hotels, car rentals, and saving money at the airport. Plus, I'm even going to share a very unique idea that pays you to travel, so you definitely don't want to miss this one. After all, these saving hacks will apply to nomads, expats, short-term vacationers, long-term travelers, really anyone looking to save money while they're on the road. You don't want to miss it. Let's get to it. But also really quickly, if you have a unique travel saving hack or way that you save money, let me know down in the comments as well, so other people can check it out too. But okay guys, the first travel hack I wanted to cover is to set up price alerts on flights that you're considering. A lot of people don't know this, but you can set up price alerts on Google Flights or Skyscanner to basically alert you when there's a price drop in a certain flight path you're keeping your eye on. This is super easy and free to do, and it's something I do on Google Flights for all of the major flight paths I'm looking at in a given year. All you need to do is go to Google Flights, toggle on the Track Prices tab, and then you'll get email updates when prices change for your search dates. All right, and the second travel hack I wanted to cover is getting a 30 to 40 liter travel backpack and learning how to pack like a pro. I mean, these days, most airlines are charging insane fees for a checked bag. Like, I've seen flights where you're spending hundreds of dollars if you want to bring a checked bag on. So this is something I really try to avoid. And what's nice about a 30 to 40 liter travel backpack is that most larger aircraft still let you take this on as a carry-on. So again, this is the Osprey 40 liter backpack I've traveled to 6 continents with. I'll put it on screen here. I'll show you guys some footage. This is the pack I recommend and have used in dozens of cities. Now, I am going to make a quick video on my kind of packing routine at some point if you guys are interested in that, but you can find all of the gear I use as well on my Amazon storefront page. And again, I think this is one of the best ways to save money and skip checked bag fees. And really, there are some simple tips you can use to pack like a pro. I mean, you can use packing cubes to really get a lot of clothing in this bag. You can wear multiple pieces of clothing on your flights. Again, I'll make a video on this and kind of my packing routine for going on extended trips with just this backpack, but this alone can save you hundreds of dollars on a single trip. All right, guys, and the third travel hack, it's a little bit different. Don't yell at me in the comment section, but it's kind of to follow negative headlines slightly. Again, this is a bit of a weird one that not everyone is comfortable with, but the idea is to essentially go to places where there's been some negative press and you're starting to see prices drop. Again, this is something I've done, sometimes intentionally, sometimes it's kind of just by happenstance, but it's ultimately resulted in a lot of travel savings. For example, I've gone to areas of Mexico where there's been negative headlines and a lot of tourism has disappeared. And I'll give you a prime example. There was an incident in Mexico where there was basically some crime and criminal activity on one of the resorts, and a bunch of resorts in that general area started getting less tourism. I found a cheap vacation plan there. I went there for a week, and honestly, to me, this is the kind of risk that I felt was acceptable. It was an isolated event on one resort. I went somewhere like 150 kilometers away. So again, it was some negative press around the general area that resulted in lower prices. I've gone to Colombia as well when there were protests, and again, prices kind of dropped a little bit. And right now I'm looking at South Africa and Cape Town because accommodation prices are dropping like crazy. Again, this is a travel hack not everyone will be comfortable with, but it is something I wanted to put on people's radar or get them thinking about because again, I want to cover some unique hacks here that work, not just the regular stuff you've already heard, like don't buy a sandwich at the airport. All right, guys, and the fourth tip, this is a massive one for anyone traveling for extended periods of time, and that is to shut off services back at home. Personally, some of the things I do include pausing my phone plan, I pause my internet, and I pause my gym membership back home whenever I head somewhere for, 2-3 months or longer. But you can do other things. For example, I actually put my vehicle here in Canada into storage. So I call my insurance company, I say, hey, take this car off the road, it's in storage, it's not going to be driven, and I just park it in a garage. Again, slashes my monthly payment by like 80 or 90 bucks. Other small things you can do include making sure your thermostat is set up right at home, and again, basically finding ways to shut off any service or subscription you're not going to be using. All right, guys, and the fifth travel hack, this is actually a side hustle opportunity, and it's very interesting. and it's to use a website called Grabber. So Grabber essentially pays you for buying products or picking up packages and then delivering them to the destination you're going to. And so essentially you sign up on Grabber, you add the trip you're taking, and you can then accept offers people have on the marketplace where they're looking for people to bring them certain products. If you accept the offer, you buy the product, you then meet the buyer from Grabber, and then Grabber pays you with the funds once you hand them the product. This might sound a little bit sketchy, but really the reason Grabber exists is that many countries, especially second or third world countries, have difficulties getting certain products. For example, it might be difficult to get the latest phone models or certain electronics or certain beauty brands or other products that people in these countries really love, but they're difficult to get a hold of. And Grabber honestly has some very interesting offers, like some of them pay out $100 to $200 or even more. Now again, you do have to go out of your way and buy the product, coordinate with the person, deliver it to them, but it's a very interesting travel hack that could make you a little bit of money, and it's something I'm starting to test out right now. All right guys, and the next travel hack, again, it's a little bit more creative, but it's essentially to research flight and train combinations or flight and local transit combinations versus your direct flight. This is less common than it used to be, but it is sometimes still much cheaper to book a flight to a different destination and then to use buses or trains or local transit to get to your actual desired destination versus booking the direct flight. For example, sometimes it's cheaper from Toronto to the UK and then taking the underground train to Paris than it is flying Toronto to Paris directly. Again, it's a bit less common and sometimes you really have to go a roundabout way if you want to find those savings, but it's something I've done in the past, and honestly, if you have a pretty flexible travel itinerary, it's a cool way to check out other countries or cities along the way. All right guys, and the next tip is to use a VPN when you're comparing prices or looking to make some kind of travel booking. And so essentially the idea here is to search for your flights or your travel accommodations from a different IP address, especially ones in different countries. Now, this doesn't always work and it's a bit of an urban myth, sometimes urban legend it feels like, but this is actually something I've experienced where I've gotten lower prices dynamically served to me when I search outside of Canada. What's also interesting and kind of similar is I've genuinely seen this happen where someone searches on an Apple device next to me and I get a cheaper price on my Android. It's not a lot, sometimes it's like $25 to $100, but this is something I've actually seen. I can't confirm, but in terms of using a VPN, you have to use one when you travel anyways to securely access your bank account and to browse online safely, so you might as well use it to also book your travel plans. Personally, I use NordVPN. You can use any VPN really. I'll be linking them down below if you want to check them out, but again, this doesn't always work, but I think it's worth trying. All right, guys, the next money-saving travel hack is to earn cash back on your travel purchases, and this is not by using a credit card, it's by using a platform called Rakuten. So Rakuten is a free cashback rewards website that pays you for shopping at thousands of stores, but you can also find some really good cashback deals on a bunch of different travel providers. For example, right now Rakuten lets you earn cashback from Expedia, Priceline, Hotels.com, Groupon, various hotel chains, VRBO, and tons of other companies. Now, often your cashback rate is in the 2 to 5%, which is still pretty awesome, but you can sometimes find travel deals of 10% or even more. And again, this works for flights, hotels, car rentals, buying suitcases, all kinds of different things. Rakuten also has a $30 referral bonus when you sign up and make a qualifying purchase. So again, this can help boost your travel budget a little bit more. I'll be linking Rakuten down below. I've used them for years. I've earned thousands of dollars with Rakuten to date, so I feel comfortable recommending them. All right, guys, the next tip, and this is a sneaky one, but it's definitely worth using, and it's to get free airport lounge passes with your credit card. Now, a ton of people know they should use a credit card for cash back or for travel perks, but they don't read the fine print and they don't necessarily know what those travel perks are that they're getting from their credit card. And so all you need to do with this one is Google your current credit card or your credit card provider and then free airport lounges and see what comes up. For example, if you have a MasterCard, you'll see airport.mastercard.com where it outlines all of the different free airport lounges you have access to as a MasterCard member. I have a TD Visa, and so here in Canada, there's visaportcompanion.ca, again, where it shows thousands of different lounges around the world that I actually have free access to as a Visa cardholder. Lounges are great for long flights. You can load up on food, get rehydrated, you can clean yourself off a little bit, and you don't need to be spending $50 to $100 or more for a lounge pass. All right, guys, next tip, it's a quick one, but it's super important, and that's to research the prices of things in a given area before you get there. And the main example here I always use is to research taxi prices. I've made this mistake early on in my traveling where I basically show up at an airport, I get my bag, or I get through checkout and everything like that, and security. I get to the exit of the airport, and then I'm like, wait, I need to take a taxi from here to the town I'm staying at, and I have no idea what this should cost. This is how you get gouged and ripped off and spend way more on a single taxi ride than you realistically should be. And so as a rule of thumb, what I like to do is before I go somewhere, I like to look on Reddit or forums. I look for the general prices of things. I kind of Google and do a bit of research, so I at least know some ballparks I should be paying. All right, guys, and the next tip relates to flights once again, but that is to check one-way flight prices rather than always looking at round-trip prices. Now again, this is less common than it used to be, and generally booking a round trip is going to be cheaper for you than booking 2 one-way tickets. But sometimes on popular routes, airlines compete a little bit more on pricing, and you can sometimes find some cheap last-minute one-way flight deals or one-way flights farther in the future. Again, it's a bit less common, but if you're willing to fly into one city and fly out of another city, you can sometimes find situations where it's slightly cheaper than a round trip, or at least it's a similar price, but it's much more fun. All right, guys, and the next tip is for those of you who want to rent vehicles, it's to look at a platform called Turo before you look at car rental companies. Car rentals have honestly become so expensive, especially in places like the United States or Canada, and it's not uncommon to pay $50 to $100 or more per day for your car rent. And so if you're comfortable, you can actually use a platform called Turo instead, which is sort of like Airbnb just for vehicle owners. So they rent out their cars to people to make a little bit of extra money. Turo is really cool. It's something my friends and I have used a lot, and you can often find cars on Turo for about 25 to 30 US dollars per day, which is way cheaper in a lot of markets than sticking with a car rental company. All right, guys, let's keep it going. The next travel tip I wanted to cover to help you save money is to not always accept flight changes when the airline sends them to you. Airlines sometimes notify their passengers of an upcoming flight change, especially for flights very far in the future that you might book. You know, they'll email you and they'll say, oh, we've made some changes. Your new departure time is now, or you're departing the next day. And they kind of email you these changes as if they're just matter of fact and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, most people, myself included, when I was new to traveling, just automatically hit accept. They say, oh, that sucks, but what can I do? I guess this is the new flight. I'm just going to accept. However, if you read the fine print, you'll sometimes find that the airline basically says, we can give you a full refund or we can help you book an alternate flight at no added cost or at a very small added cost. So again, just read the fine print and don't be so quick to accept flight changes, because you can sometimes get your money back and then make a plan that works better for you. All right, guys, and the next tip I wanted to cover, and this is a really simple way to save money when you travel, is to use an eSIM or local SIM rather than roaming with your phone plan. It honestly still shocks me, but a lot of people, when they go travel somewhere, even for a week or two, will basically change their phone plan. They'll turn on roaming and get some data, but this costs anywhere from like $5 to $20 a day, or sometimes more. And again, it's really not worth doing because there's a much cheaper alternative. These days, most phones are eSIM compatible, so you can use a company out there that basically lets you buy a data and texting package when you're abroad that is way cheaper than roaming with your current phone provider. Now, my recommendation is to use Saily. They have really super cheap plans with data. They're really flexible, they're easy to use, and again, it's going to be a fraction of the price versus roaming with your current phone plan. All right, guys, and the next tip I wanted to cover, this is another massive way to save money when traveling. It's a little bit harder to pull off, but it's worth trying, and that's to negotiate with your Airbnb host or your Booking.com host or whoever you're renting your place from. Now, really, this is only worth doing, in my opinion, for longer term stays, like 3 to 4 weeks or more, but it's something I've done a few times that's saved me a lot of money. But essentially, when you book somewhere, you can book for a couple of weeks or maybe a month and you stay there. But then what I like to do is I message the host and I say, hey, we could maybe also find a way to deal in cash so you save money on the Airbnb fees and I save money as well. Again, once I stay here for a couple of weeks and you get to know me and you see that I don't trash the place. Again, this really isn't as common because a lot of hosts, they want to stay on Airbnb, they like the insurance they get, they like the protections they get. But again, a lot of them really don't like the platform fees. And so once they get to know you and they see you for 2-3 weeks and the place is fine and they see you don't cause trouble, they would actually prefer to deal in cash. I've done this in Mexico before and saved a couple $100. And again, I think it's pretty good if you're staying somewhere for a couple of months. You want to get to know the host anyways. You want to actually stay somewhere you like and might return to. So again, definitely worth trying this tip. All right guys, and the next tip, it's another super easy way to save money and to reduce the foreign transaction fees you're paying. And that's actually to order currency to your bank ahead of time before you travel. Again, a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually order foreign currency to your bank in most countries, I'm assuming, and then pick it up before you head off on your next adventure. So for example, I bank with TD and I live in Canada, and I do this all the time. I order foreign currency to my local branch and I pick it up in a couple of days before I head off on my destination. In a lot of places, this is much cheaper and you get a better exchange rate from your actual bank at home than finding ATMs abroad and paying ATM fees and getting really bad transaction rates there. Again, I've saved a lot of money and it's very simple to do. And if this isn't something you're gonna do, at the very least, make sure you use a multi-currency card when you're abroad. So again, you're lowering your foreign transaction fees as much as possible. Personally, I use Wise. They're what I recommend to everyone. I've used them in so many countries around the world. It always works really well for me, but there's Revolut, there's other ones out there as well. But definitely lower transaction fees wherever possible because these really do stack up over time and cost people a lot of money. All right guys, and the next tip, it's super simple, but it's essentially to eat outside of city centers just by a little bit and to kind of avoid the tourist hotspots when you're traveling somewhere. It's actually crazy, but like even a kilometer or two outside of a major tourist hub or city center, you'll see the prices at restaurants starting to go down. I mean, somewhere like Dubrovnik is the perfect example of this. If you eat inside the actual castle walls, you are going to be spending way more money than if you eat somewhere just a little bit outside of that main hub. Now again, I think people should enjoy themselves. Go have an expensive beer or an expensive pizza at this, beautiful tourist destination. But if you're really trying to save money, a couple of kilometers away from these spots is going to be your best bet. Not to mention going to things like local markets or the local grocery store or finding street vendors is also going to stretch your travel budget a lot more. All right guys, the next travel hack I wanted to cover, it's super simple, but it's also to sign up for different free travel deal websites or flight alert websites. Now personally, the one I like the most is going.com, which was formerly known as Scott's Cheap Flights. But this is essentially a newsletter where you get travel deals and flight notifications all the time of cheap flights leaving from different cities. It's free to join, which is why I like it, and I've actually taken a flight from it before. It notified me of a really cheap flight from Toronto going down to Mexico. So I booked it, saved some nice money that way. And again, it's free, so I definitely recommend checking out these kinds of newsletters. All right guys, and the next tip is to pay for things in local currency and not your own currency when you're paying abroad. And let me explain what I mean, because this one confused me for a very long time. Now, a lot of times when you transact abroad with a Visa or your MasterCard or something like that, and they actually show you the credit card terminal, it will say, do you want to pay in a local currency or do you want to pay in your home currency? And it'll give you two options. This is kind of confusing, and to a lot of people, they think, oh, well, I'm from America and I can pay in US dollars. This must be better. Or I see it even in the States, like I'll pay for something and it'll say, oh, do you want to pay in Canadian or do you want to pay in American? Generally, it's better to choose local because you'll get a way better exchange rate than paying with your own currency from home and then dealing with the transaction fees that the merchant passes on to you. Again, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but this is why I once again recommend using something like Wise or Revolut, because you can pay in local currencies and the transaction fees are as good as you're gonna get, essentially. All right guys, and the next tip, again, a little bit out of the box, but it can really save your bacon, and that's to take photos of everything you book on a trip. This is especially important for Airbnb or Booking.com or anything where you're renting an accommodation or place from a host. You wanna make sure you're covering yourself. You take photos of the place when you got there and how you left it so they don't come after you with any crazy damage claims. This is also very important if you rent a vehicle, especially off of a platform like Turo, but even from the rental car companies. There are stories of hosts or these kind of rental companies coming after people with bogus cleaning fees or bogus damage claims. So again, it takes 30 seconds, but take photos of everything you rent before and after. All right guys, and the next tip I wanted to cover to help you save money while traveling is just to join some local Facebook and WhatsApp groups when you're heading to a different destination. This is a great way to meet people and make friends, and it's also a great way to find free local events going on or really cheap and fun events going on. I've done this in so many different countries, and I've found awesome hiking groups or really cheap meet and greets or events going on at the beach that are completely free. So it's a really nice way to Basically make more friends while also keeping your costs down. And this kind of ties into my next point, and that would be to find cheap walking tours or events going on for tourists in the city you're going to. Europe is honestly great for this, and you can find so many free walking tours where essentially you get a historical tour of the city and then you're just expected to tip your walking tour guide. So again, it can be done for a super cheap amount. I've also found really cheap experiences on Airbnb experiences. Again, biking tours, walking tours, sightseeing tours, and all kinds of awesome events going on in the city I'm in. Similarly, museums and art galleries often have deals for tourists, or they might have deals for students. So one thing I've done, again, a little bit sketchy, but I've basically said, oh, I forgot my student card at home, but could you give me the student discount? You put on a smile, you usually get it even if you're not actually a student. Again, as long as you look a little bit young, you could probably try that one out. All right, guys, and my next money-saving travel hack, and the last one I'm gonna cover for this video, is to find ways to get free accommodation or heavily discounted accommodation, and I'll explain some of your options. If you're comfortable, there are still couch surfing groups out there on different forums or Reddit and kind of these digital nomad communities, so you could always take a leap of faith and try out couch surfing. There are also workaway programs where you can get free room and board and accommodation for volunteering somewhere or working somewhere part-time. So again, lots of interesting options there. Finally, there's also platforms like Home Exchange and Kindred where you can actually swap houses with people. So again, it's a little bit of a more interesting route, but a way to potentially get free accommodation. If you're not afraid of meeting strangers and you're not afraid to get creative, there are some very unique ways out there to travel for super cheap or even freely. So that's why I wanted to wrap up the video with that idea. But anyways, guys, that does it for over 20 different hacks you can use to save money while you travel. Now again, like I said, I didn't want to cover the basics in this video that most people probably know, like booking your flights in advance, looking for deals, using a travel rewards card, things like that. Don't get me wrong, these methods will probably make the most significant impact to your travel budget, and that's why they are staples that a lot of people have already covered and why I think they're excellent tips. But if you really want to maximize your travel budget and you're not afraid to get a little bit creative, I hope some of the tips in this video also help you out. Now, like I mentioned, I'd also love to hear from you guys down in the comments below about any other money-saving tactics you use to reduce your travel spending. But yeah, that really does it for this one, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and thank you guys so much for watching and for all of the support. It really does mean a lot. I hope you all have a fantastic day and week. I'll catch you guys in the next one.